What is up, everybody? It's the Mathaholics again. We're going to be alternating as we do our problems. As I said in the first video yesterday, once we get to 150 subscribers, we're going to give away 3 Cane's gift cards to those 150 people. Well, not 3 per person, but we're going to do a giveaway, and 3 people are going to win. So if you want to have a chance to win some free chicken and you want to help us out, then just subscribe, and who knows, maybe you'll get free chicken, right? Alrighty, so this first problem over here is actually really easy, no real math required, as I'm sure you know, or if you don't know. We have our points over here. Here is coordinate 1, 0. Here we have 0, 1, -1 and 0, and 0, -1. Okay? Now, at these points, before I tell you what's at these points, keep in mind, when you're doing trigonometry, cosine is x, so x equals cosine, and sine is y. Now, at these points, you also have 2 pi, pi halves, pi, and 3 pi over 2. Now, how is all this information going to help us out with the problem? Well, if we look ahead, or not really ahead, just look back at our problem, we have pi halves. So where do we have pi halves on this chart right here? Pi halves is right where we see the 0, 1 coordinate points. And what's the question asking us for? Cosine of what? Pi halves. So you go to pi halves, and as I said right here, cosine is the x value, x coordinate, excuse me. So you just look at for the x coordinate, and it's right there. Like I said, no real math required. You just gotta know, you just have to know where your points are, where your degrees are, where your radians are, and there you go.
Okay, the next problem is the cosecant of 5 pi over 6. 5 pi. Okay, so we have to draw the unit circle first. Okay, this is 0 to pi. This is pi halves. This is pi. And this is 3 pi over 2. So 5 pi over 6 is not quite pi yet, so it'd be right here. And if we draw a triangle down, so it's 5 pi over 6, which means it's pi over 6 away from pi. So that would be our angle right here. That angle is equal to 30 degrees. If we remember the side lengths, opposite the 30 is 1/2. Opposite the 60 is √3 over 2. Since it's going to the left, it'd be negative, and the hypotenuse is 1. If we're just looking at this, the sine would be 1/2, since it's the y. But they're asking for the cosecant, which is 1 over sine, which would be 2.
Alrighty, so for this next question, you know the routine. We have to draw. Alrighty, so this quadrant right here, it ends on this vertical line at 90 degrees. Then we draw again over here, and this ends at 180. So we know that 120 is going to be somewhere in this quadrant right over here, correct? Well, if you answered me, I couldn't hear you, but if you said correct, then I appreciate you for that. Okay, so we're just going to draw this angle, this triangle, somewhere in here. That's okay. It doesn't really matter where for this type of problem, as long as you're in the right quadrant And that's a really general way of going about finding the quadrant if you don't know how to do that. Now, in order to find the answer to this question, you're going to need to know the reference angle. Your reference angle is going to be right here. So to do that, we're going to take our 180, which is what is on this vertical line. Well, the angle from here to this vertical line is 180, as I was explaining. And then let me just get rid of that so it's not as messy. Perfect. 180 minus the 120 that we had originally, minus 120, and that's going to give us 60. So we know that our reference angle over here is 60. Comes to 60 degrees, or pi over 3. Whatever you prefer. If your teacher prefers degrees, if your teacher prefers radians, you have it either way. Just know that 60 is equivalent to pi over 3. Now, once we know pi over 3 slash 60 is our, reference angle measure, we know that this side over here is root 3 over 2. I love how I did that radical sign really big and that 3 really small, but it's okay. If you do not know how I found the root 3 over 2, it's just part of your 30, 60, 90 triangle. And why do I know it's a 30, 60, 90? Well, we have a 60 degree angle right here. And on the other side, not the hypotenuse of the 30, 60, 90, we have 1/2. And since we're going to the left, this is a negative. And then the hypotenuse is a 1. So how do we find the sine? Sine, SOHCAHTOA. Opposite hypotenuse. So opposite this reference angle right over here. Let me make that a different color just in case you're getting confused. So we're trying to find the sine, like I said, opposite of the hypotenuse, opposite from this reference angle. What's opposite of that is the root 3 over 2 over hypotenuse, which is 1, and that just root 3 over 2. Alrighty, for the last problem right here, we have tangent of 585. Drawing the unit shouldn't be new to you now. Start right here, we have 0. At the top, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees, and another turn around is going to give you 360 degrees. So we're trying to find 585. How is that going to be possible if the highest this unit goes up to is 360? Well, fortunately, we can do 585. Let me write that better. 585 minus 360, and that's going to give you 225 degrees. So 225 is going to be somewhere in between the 180 and the 270. That being said, we know that we can draw a triangle in the third quadrant. In case you don't know, quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. So here we are in the third triangle. Alright, now this is our angle, our reference angle. We do not know what that reference angle is yet. In order to find that, we're going to do our 225, which is equivalent to the tangent of 585. 225 minus 180, and that's going to give you 45 degrees. And we took the 180 from this side right here, since we know that's what 180 is, and we are making this triangle in the quadrant preceding 180. So like I said, we have 45 degrees. That makes this reference angle 45 degrees as well, or pi over 4. If you prefer degrees, that's the answer. If you prefer radians, that's the answer right there. Well, I guess it's what your teacher prefers, not what you prefer, but we'll just go with it for now. Now, a 45 degree angle, you should recognize the sides because it's a 45, 45, 90 triangle. And here you have a negative root 2 over 2. And here you have another negative root 2 over 2. And the hypotenuse is 1. Okay, so now how are we going to find the tangent of this triangle over here? If you may, or as you may or may not remember, SOHCAHTOA. Tangent, opposite over adjacent. So we're trying to find tangent of the reference angle. Right here, the reference angle over 45. We go across it, and we see we have a negative root 2 over 2. I'm going to write that right over here. So negative root 2 over 2. Now that is over divided by our adjacent right here, which is also negative root 2 over 2. Now, what kind of answer is this? This is a really ugly, really bad type of answer. So what we can do, we're just going to simplify this. So negative root 2 over 2 divided by negative root 2 over 2 is just the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. Yeah, let me just make more room for that. Okay, and what does this equal over here? That gives us negative 2 root 2 over 2 root 2. And that is equivalent to 1. That's the answer. Simple. Hope you enjoyed.